Can we make Sword Art Online today? I asked that question a year ago, and judging from the response, it's clear that regardless of whether or not we can or can't, we definitely want to. So how much has the desire to create a game like Sword Art Online produced in the past year? The last video was subdivided into things we can, can't, and may be able to do. In the can, I mostly went over the scale of the game, rough design aspects, and some technicals. By and large, most of the technological aspects, outside of VR and rendering difficulty, are really matters of infrastructure, which is a matter of time, money, and politics in this case. But then again, what isn't? On the end of things that have changed, there really isn't all that much to go into, so I'll mainly be going over the few things that we can do development-wise right now to make something like Sword Art Online easier, sans the improvement of virtual reality, since I've beaten the living death out of that topic more than enough in other videos and will probably continue to do so in other videos. Let's have a look at the scale situation I mentioned last year. In terms of size, I've already established that SAO is far from the largest thing created in gaming. 31 square miles over 100 floors isn't really an insurmountable feat, though admittedly the titles that surpass this share one thing in common: Procedural Generation. This is a technique that uses specialized algorithms to generate the game world. This technique is employed in a variety of ways in titles, from Diablo to Minecraft. It can be used for any kind of content, and is mostly used as an engine-level feature that allows for almost infinite variety in content without needing an infinite amount of workers. Irregardless of the game size, it really doesn't matter if we can't take advantage of that content. A big game like SAO needs a lot of content, right? If you've seen the kinds of quests that Kirito and the others play in SAO Special and in the mid-season of SAO 2, you can probably tell that the quests are rather grand, but also hardly pushing the barriers of creativity when you think about it. This simplicity implies that something like the director system from the Left 4 Dead franchise could be applied to help fulfill the creation of content that a game like SAO would need. You may recall that Sword Art Online featured a system called Cardinal that managed basically all VR MMORPGs based on the Seed platform. This system's primary two functions were to monitor the game's balance and both manage and generate quests. Sound familiar? It's a combination of the Procedural Generation and AI director systems I mentioned earlier. It's a smart idea too, since each one solves the other's problems. Procedural games tend to depend on user creativity and grind for encouragement, while AI directors can suffer from a limited set of pieces to play with. The player emotion system that was Yui's purpose basically sounds like adding in the user biometrics VR gets as an added variable set to consider in the equations. Add in that something like this would probably be handled on the server side with cloud computing, and I can confidently say that the Cardinal system is possible right now, premature AI singularity not included, right? Graphically, I found that most people prefer the notion of stylized graphics along the line of the anime aesthetically. Under that notion, SAO becomes much more doable. After all, just look at this. This is a screenshot of some of the early footage from The Legend of Zelda for Wii U. Look kinda similar to something? If that is doable on a Wii U, a Titan or two with an i7-5960X on DX12 should do just fine for something of SAO's caliber. Add in that SAO was hardly photoreal to begin with, since they even remark in the light novels that polygons are a noticeable artifact, and in SAO 2 they even mention that there is some lacking of data within the system, and we have some leeway to work with regards to creating a world with the aesthetic sense of Sword Art Online in a viable time frame. The swordplay in SAO is kind of a hassle right now, due to the lack of any VR input system that can hold a candle to a proper brain-computer interface like an SAO. Physics-wise, it may be a bit heavy to handle, since a lot of self-collisions, model deformations, and animations in real time would have to be done online, but the eponymous sword arts of Sword Art Online aren't quite as heinous an act. They're effectively just normal skills or arts like in any other MMO, just with a bit more physics to them and the use of gestures to activate them rather than hotkeys. The creation of tons of these would be tough, but the motion capture and developments in VR will likely make these easier to produce. Custom sword arts would actually be a much more useful function here, since it would massively reduce the development loads and still allow for a fun feature. Everything else is rather par for the course design-wise, unless we want to count in death, but if you want that, I'm going to advise that you either start a cult with ritual suicide as a metric, or create a Saw-like murder trap and make certain to isolate it all from reasonable insane people. Either that or take away the right to internet, computer usage, and procreation, since I personally think I'd rather be dead than suffer such a fate anyhow. Overall, I wouldn't really say much has changed in for the specifics of developing a game like Sword Art Online, even a full year out now. If there's any solace, I'd say it's that the infrastructure needed to make a game like Sword Art Online financially viable is probably going to be ready by the time VR is capable of handling it. Before I wrap this up, I thought I'd shout out a few efforts being made specifically related to Sword Art Online for those of you that might have missed them. The first is a demo created by Bandai Namco for the Oculus Rift that showcases a few different scenes from the anime and our current VR simulations. I really wish they'd put out the demo that they created publicly so I could try it out on my DK2. But alas, it's still nice to see that they're paying attention to it, particularly since it seems that they're the company that holds the right to video games made with the Sword Art Online franchise, if their PSP and Vita games are anything to go by. Next up, I want to highlight the efforts of the users DarkScythe, Hawk Games, and LaserMan47, which have created rather compelling demos using different tech to create GGO and SAO feature demos. DarkScythe created a minigame where they deflect bullets and shoot balls using Razor Hydras with a small UI element as well reminiscent to Sword Art Online. Hawk Games created a menu demonstration that was practically dead on for what the show accomplished using the Leap Motion 3D. It's log out button excluded, of course. Lastly, LaserMan47 uploaded a demo to the Oculus Share website, which captures the show's VR experience from the first episode. You lay in bed as Kirito with the nerve gear on, you link start into the login sequence, transition and all, and finally you enter the game world, walking along a path to the end of the demo. These go to show that SAO functions can be emulated with our current VR technology, and that indie efforts ought to be applauded for their work. Finally, I'm going to bring up two larger fan projects I've seen that seem to be trying to build Sword Art Online as they can today: Age of Ironclad and Blades of Ascension. Both look to be a pretty good show that SAO could possibly be made by the efforts of the fan community if the technology and infrastructure are there to support them. That just about does it for what I've got to say in this video. Really, I can't help but be a little disappointed at VR's growth rate, since it seems to be mellowing out quite a bit. Though expecting that to grow at the pace it did as frequently as it did may have been a bit hasty. I do, however, think it gives smaller developers out there time to try and make a name for themselves in the VR space before the larger companies completely try to take over the helm. Thank you very much for watching this video, and do remember to rate, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so, as it really helps out the channel. Stay tuned, as I've got even more virtual reality content coming your way in the near future. This has been Markystal, logging out.